Hey, it's Heather, and today is a very good day for an adventure in gardening. So today I want to bring you inside my kitchen, and I want to show you all of the different things I've got going on because it is busy. There's a lot of incoming, a lot of preserving, there's tincturing, there's all kinds of stuff going on in the kitchen right now. And I thought maybe one of my ideas that I think are good ideas could become your great idea. And you can apply it to your own life in your own garden. So let's go on inside and take a look. So incoming produce and seeds and herbs and stuff that needs to be dried and stuff that needs to be canned and all the things that happen this time of year when harvest season is starting. That is not meant to be this huge big chore where you're stressed out all the time. Remember when you first started this was supposed to be fun. So picking up little tips and tricks along the way to keep it fun is really important. I've learned some great little shortcuts and some things to buy me some time along my journey from some very talented people. And they've helped me to kind of streamline things and make it a little bit easier and to keep it still fun. So I'm going to show you some of the things I've got going on in the kitchen right now, and that allows me to not make this a big stressful chore. The preservation and all of the incoming things and the things that need to be done right now. So let's take a look. So we will have a kitchen table again by Thanksgiving, I promise. So right now this is the freshest batch of canned tomatoes that just came in. This is actually a sauce that I made. They just came in, the rings are still on. I bring them in, I let them sit for a little while, then I take the rings off of them, and then they wait for me to date them and move them into the basement pantry. So I've got some sauce that I've made and some whole tomatoes that I canned, and then I've got this is made from mostly my heirloom, the really dark purple ones, the purple tomatoes, so that's why it's so much darker. I do small batches, I do big batches. These are some beets, the beets I did the other day that are waiting to get dated and put in the pantry. I use a lot of bowls and just will keep my things in the bowls on the table. This is just, I thought I'd show you, this is Nepenthes. This has been in my kitchen for quite a few years. I love that. Other things that are in the kitchen right now, I have on the counter over here, I've got some pickles that need to be dated and put away, and then I have, this is St. John's oil that I made, and I always write the date that it's going to be done on the top, okay? So that way I know when to strain it and put it into a different container. So I've got the St. John's oil, I've got this St. John's wort oil, I've got the St. John's wort tincture here, and then I've got a hops tincture, and these hops are actually from last year's garden because I had so many hops left over that you know, I have to make room for the new ones coming in. And this one I use for sleep. This is anxiety, sleep, stress, pain. St. John's wort I use for pain, so that's why there's an oil there too. And then I've got some kombucha here that you can flavor your kombucha with your garden herbs. In the second ferment, and I just leave it on the counter during the second ferment. And when I always put ginger in my kombucha, and when it's ready it makes a popping noise. Yeah, did you hear that fizz? Okay, so it's actually ready to go into the refrigerator now at this point. I mean, there's nothing like, you know, when you've been working in the garden all day, an ice cold glass of kombucha. I love that. This morning I went out and I did the harvesting already. So I used my salad spinner insert to harvest greens. And then I just soak my lettuce and whatever greens I've picked in here for a few hours and leave that on the counter. So that can wait until later. On this counter, I just picked some baskets and bowls, those are the two things. Whenever I'm at tag sales or thrift shops, I pick up baskets and bowls. I harvested some basil this morning for pesto, and all I'm going to do with, actually it's not, I shouldn't call it pesto. I harvested basil this morning because what I'm going to do with it is I'm going to throw it in the food processor with some olive oil, and then I'm going to flatten it out and freeze it in a Ziploc bag. So I'm going to do that shortly. I'm going to soak it in water first, and then the harvest baskets have, you know, all the cherry tomatoes that I've harvested between yesterday and this morning, some of my little mutant cucumbers that I'll use for juicing, and over here, you know, I've got Berry's Crazy Cherry. And okay, so these tomatoes here, I actually don't use these in the sauce when they are misshapen like that. They're too hard to deal with, so I'll use those as a salad this evening. I've always got a basket of my rings out for canning this time of year. I just leave them out, so much easier. Normally they're on strings in the basement like this, so you know, for storage, but I just find it easier just to keep it out because I'm going to keep using them. And of course my little lids here, some fennel seeds, use these little bowls to collect fennel, some blueberries that I picked, and these get frozen. We're getting down to the last of the blueberries, and so now I want to show you what's on the stovetop simmering. So before I show you what's in the pot here, I want to show you over on the counter there is my crock pot that I keep. It's a stoneware crock pot that I absolutely love, and I've researched crock pots, and stoneware really is the way to go as far as crock pots go. I love it. I keep it on the counter this time of year because when I have a small batch of tomatoes, I just throw them in that crock pot, wash them, throw them in the crock pot, and then just walk away from them. But when I have a bigger batch, I put it in this pot right here. Now I also have a much bigger pot. Actually, I've got huge pots, so really it depends on how big of a job and which pot I'm going to use, but I try to keep everything at hand this time of year. So simmering since probably about 6 o'clock this morning is a big pot of tomatoes, and I did peel them. Now you don't always have to peel them because of what I'm going to do next. So I throw them in here whole, I let them stew down a little bit. You can kind of see the mark where they started right there. And then I just use this immersion blender, and this will help to thicken the whole thing up and get it ready for canning. So it doesn't matter if it's a cherry tomato or a full-size tomato, I just throw it in the pot. Now I'm going to let this continue to evaporate and cook down a little bit more. You can see it's still very watery, and I don't mind the seeds at all. I don't de-seed my tomatoes, but that's just me. So I'm going to take this top and I'm just going to leave it just like that for the rest of the day here. And I'll can them up tonight. So seed saving is a big part of what I do, and if it's a dried seed, it doesn't make it past the sunroom. So the peas, the beans, things like that, they're going to stay out there. All of the dried kale, the pods on the kale and cilantro and you name it, pretty much it stays out there and doesn't go any further. Now tomatoes are a really big deal for us because we save our own seeds, not just for our own use. And when I say us, I mean me. Yeah, me. No. Now tomatoes are a really big deal for us because not only are we saving the seeds for ourselves to plant the tomato plants next year, but we also are selling them. So I want to make sure that I keep my seed as pure as possible. But regardless, you should save your own tomato seeds, and it's super easy to do. It's just you gotta just do a couple extra steps when it comes to your tomatoes in preparation for your seeds. So here on the counter I've got, this is Hartman's Yellow Goose right here. Okay, now these are super soft, all right, and that's how I want them to be before I go to the next process in the seed saving for the tomatoes. And here is Orange Hat. Now, saving seeds for tomatoes, you want to save them from either an heirloom or an open pollinated tomato plant, okay? Because then you're going to get the same plant next year as you had this year, okay? So hybrids, I mean, you're gonna get the parent plants, most likely. That's kind of how that works. So I've got these very soft, look at, very soft, kind of shriveled. Look at those gardener's hands, ugh. And now they're ready for the next step. And I'm gonna show you what the next step is. So I'm just gonna take a regular glass or a canning jar and fill it with water. And I'm gonna take my orange hat. I'm gonna put a little more water in here. I'm gonna take my orange hat tomato. You see I just squeezed it under the water. Okay, now I've got pulp, and I'm going to leave the skin in there for now, and I've got the seeds. So I'm going to do this with the rest of them here. Now sometimes it squirts out the top. There we go. Now the thing about saving tomato seeds is there's a little gel pocket around your seed that will actually inhibit your seed from sprouting the next year. So you want to ferment your tomato seeds, and then I'll show you. I have some fermented ones, and then you can go about drying them and treating them as normal. So that's just a little extra step, and that's why this is done in the kitchen. So there's jars everywhere, and fruit flies are a real thing when it comes to produce. I'm sure if you're a gardener and you've got produce incoming, you totally know what I'm talking about. And for that, I just do the funnel with a little bit of apple cider vinegar in the bottom or a banana peel and in the canning jar. If you need more instructions on that, just give me a shout. But it really does work. So I'm going to do the same thing for the Hartmans. Now let me show you. This is, what tomato is this? It's gonna, I need to put Post-it notes in here. I only had 3 going so far. This is pink vernissage. Yes, this is pink vernissage in here, a lot of them. Now this one is definitely fermented. I'm hoping you can see the bubbles. Oh yeah, you totally can, right? All right, so these have been sitting for a couple of days. So the fermentation process for the seedlings, I actually started on the counter in the tomato itself at first. So I wouldn't call it that they're rotting, but they're getting super ripe. So it starts there, and then it goes into the jar of water. Now all that I will do for this, actually I'll just show you, hold on. So here's what I do when they've started to get the fizziness on the top. Now you're going to see other people have different ideas on how to do this, and that's fine. I'm just going to show you how I do it, and then you can change it to suit you and how you do things. But I want to take all of the skin out. So I just make sure that all of the seeds are out, and I remove the skin. And after I do that, I'm actually going to leave the seeds inside for another couple days, inside the water. Because I see that some of these still have the gel on the outside. Some of these seeds do. All right, so after you remove the pulp and you've waited another couple days, let me show you what comes next. So the tomato seeds in this jar are Red Robin, and this is a container, a little red cherry tomato that's for containers, and it was the first to be ready to collect. So you can see that the pulp has been removed and the water's really cloudy, and I checked them this morning and they're ready. So what I'm going to do, and this is where the sink comes in, is I'm going to start pouring it off. The seeds are at the bottom here. So I start by just pouring the water off, and some of the pulp is coming out. And now I'm going to add a little bit of fresh water. And I'm going to swirl it around. And by swirling it, the pulp will come to the top and the seeds and to the bottom, and I don't know if you can see. And then I pour it off again. And more pulp is coming out. So the pulp came to the top, the seeds to the bottom, and now I'm pouring the pulp out. Okay, one more time with water. And swirl it again. Okay, now on wax paper, I know a lot of people will tell you to put them on paper towels, but I just like wax paper or parchment so much better because they just pop off super easy. They don't stick. And then I just take my spoon and I spread them out. So this is how I handle tomato seeds. And I do a similar thing with cucumber seeds as well. So they come into the kitchen. Okay, so this is actually a cucumber. This is Puna Kira, and this is one that I've been, I let it mature and on the vine, and then I picked it and then I let it sit. So can you hear it? I mean, it is like, well, I could probably break it open with my fingers. It's so ready. So what I'm going to do with that, and this will stay in the kitchen too, because they need my attention. I need to make sure that I take them out of the jars when they're ready to be dried and then saved. All right. So it's super easy to save your own seeds. You just need to make sure that it's mature. Mature, old, whatever. And then not only will you have enough seeds for yourself for next year, you'll have seeds to give away to people. And I always give away a lot of seeds. So the last thing I want to show you that I'm keeping in the kitchen this time of year are my reference books. Now I have a lot of books on canning and food preservation, but there's 3 that I keep out all the time that I'm constantly using. I keep out a book that I write in. So when I do something, I will write it down, the date that I did it and how I did it. I also keep my own recipes that I've tweaked from other books inside this little book here. So this is very helpful. I have a very old reference book. Actually, what year is this? So this is 1975, Putting Food By. This is a very loved, used book. Now, things have changed in the world of canning and food preservation since 1975. I use this as a reference book because sometimes you just can't find the answer to things, and these older books will have the answers, but just be cautious because there's a reason that there are new books. Okay, but I always keep this one on hand, and I'm sure they've revised this one, so it might be out there somewhere. And then, so in this book by Jackie Clay, I just love her. There's a website, Backwood Home. She's got some great recipes in here. So a good reference book is definitely something to keep in your kitchen this time of year. So I hope you've enjoyed this little look around at all the things I've got stewing and the seeds I've got saving and all the little projects I've got going. I would love a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'd love to hear from you. What's going on in your garden, in your kitchen? Let me know. And thanks for watching, and remember, every day is an adventure. Hope to see you soon.